Experts are warning that the Pacific Ring of Fire is entering a critical phase. Geez, what does that mean for everyone who lives along the Pacific Ring of Fire, this huge horseshoe ring of fire that encircles the Pacific Ocean and has all these dangerous subduction zones, the Cascadia Fault, Kamchatka, we just had a megathrust earthquake there. Japan, of course, everyone remembers the 2011 Tohoku earthquakes. And then we have all the volcanoes, tsunamis, earthquakes, volcanoes. So if we see that headline, what does that really mean? And scientists say something extraordinary is happening along the horseshoe-shaped belt, the Pacific Ring of Fire. It's home to 3/4 of the world's active volcanoes, and it's roughly responsible for 9 out of 10 earthquakes globally. So if we hear that headline, we better look into this. It has entered what scientists are describing as an unprecedented phase of heightened activity. They're telling us that throughout 2024 and early 2025, volcanic eruptions and seismic events have surged to levels that haven't been seen in decades. And that, of course, was catching geologists, volcanologists, and seismologists off guard and has prompted urgent warnings about what might lie ahead. So according to the Smithsonian Global Volcanism Program, 45 volcanoes were in continuing eruption status as of late 2025. I have reported about quite a few of them. One of the highest counts, we have to say, 45 by the end of 2025. One of the highest counts in recent decades. And even more concerning, numerous confirmed eruptions occurred during 2024 from various volcanoes, and that represents a significant increase from previous years. And now let's look at the earthquakes. Let's look at that, because that is the number that is really telling a story. But also the numbers that we have with the volcanoes tell a story that is hard to ignore already. The Ring of Fire's volcanic systems aren't just active, they're coordinating their fury in what scientists find deeply troubling. Coordinating. Okay, guys, we need to look at this. The earthquake frequencies spike to alarming levels. So you can have, if you have a look at this image here, for example, we're dealing with not one volcano, not one earthquake, dozens of events across multiple countries, significant large events within a very compressed period of time. So the Pacific Ring of Fire may not be erupting or triggering or whatever all at once, but the activity levels over the past years have raised serious questions among everyone. And I'm showing you this here now. This is what's currently going on along the Pacific Ring of Fire. We see there's earthquakes everywhere, every day. I mean, there are more quiet areas like the Cascadia subduction zone, which is kind of dangerous because this one is locked and loaded as well. And it stays quiet until boof, we see the big one, 9.0 plus. So let's define the stakes. The Ring of Fire, we know, wraps around the Pacific Basin. Roughly 75% of the world's active volcanoes, accounts for about 90% of global earthquakes. That's normal. But what's not normal is when the activity clusters. And that's what we're seeing. Throughout 2024 and 2025, eruption counts and seismic frequencies have risen noticeably in several sectors of this belt. I have reported about these earthquake swarms in Japan, about Kamchatka. We're still seeing the aftershocks in Kamchatka, right? So experts are watching this closely, and I tell you why. Let's look at the hard numbers. We have seen one of the higher counts in recent decades with these 45 volcanoes with ongoing eruption status that are going into 2026, and Indonesia alone, where we hear something basically every day, home about to 120 active volcanoes has seen repeated explosive activity, including Mount Levotobi-Laki-Laki, sending ash nearly 15 miles into the atmosphere. That eruption, for example, has disrupted flights between Bali and Australia. And also, we had a very catastrophic eruption there also. And this isn't isolated. And when multiple volcanic systems remain active at the same time, we are starting to look for patterns. And that's what tells us something. Seismic data, in addition, tells us a different story. Nearly 15,000 magnitude 4 plus, magnitude 4 or greater earthquakes were recorded globally alone in 2024. That is an increase compared to the previous year, to 2023. Japan's Nankai Trough region has experienced elevated small to moderate quake frequency in early 2025 compared to the same period in 2024. 2025, through the year, Japan has seen these larger earthquakes. Japan, the region, is particularly sensitive because it sits at the intersection of not one, of multiple tectonic plates. And historically, it has produced massive earthquakes and massive tsunamis. That doesn't mean, guys, that the next one is imminent. But increased seismic noise in known stress zones is something scientists monitor carefully. And you should really watch my video that I put in the end screen, because they have drilled in the subduction zone in Japan at the same spot where the 2011 Tohoku earthquake happened, and what they found will blow your mind. Let's have a look at Alaska. Lots of earthquakes. We had big ones last year. Russia, Kamchatka. Is there a pattern layer? This goes, right? We have Russia, Kamchatka, Alaska, and Japan. Just in July 2025, massive earthquake struck near Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula, and it has triggered volcanoes. And then in the months surrounding it, these multiple volcanic systems still showed increased heightened activity. Alaska, part of the same tectonic boundary system, has experienced its own bursts of volcanic and seismic events. So when different segments of a plate boundary show activity within a relatively short time frame, of course that raises a very natural question. Is this random clustering, or is it part of a larger stress cycle? And that's where things become more complex. What is the scientific reality here? Plate tectonics is not synchronized in a simple way. It's definitely not. One eruption does not automatically trigger another one across the ocean. But stress transfer along connected fault systems is real. Large earthquakes redistribute the pressure. Volcanic systems can respond to changes in crustal stress. We know that. So what the scientists are now trying to determine is whether the current activity falls within normal multi-year fluctuation or represents the beginning of a more energized phase. Energized phase. That phase is the key, because we have a lot of human stakes in the game. Hundreds of millions of people live along the Pacific Ring of Fire. Japan, Indonesia, the Philippines, Chile, Peru, the US, West Coast of Canada, Alaska, right? Russia. These regions, most of them do have advanced monitoring systems. Some are better than others. But early warning systems, yes, they reduce the risk, but they do not eliminate it at all. So if elevated activity continues, emergency planning moves from precaution to priority. So is the Pacific Ring of Fire entering this critical phase? I'm giving you my honest answer. It may be entering a period of heightened clustering. how we describe it. But geology operates on long time scales. We know that. So what matters now is we need to monitor trends. If eruption counts decline and seismic rates normalize again, this becomes a temporary surge, right? And then back to normal. If they remain elevated across multiple regions, then 2025, what we've seen there, may mark the beginning of a more active chapter along the Pacific Ring of Fire. And that's what we need to watch, and we are watching it. And if you want to understand why the tsunami in 2011 in Japan was as monstrous as it was, as destructive and large, you have to watch this video in the end screen, because they drilled into the subduction zone. And what they found was the tsunami wasn't random. It was definitely written to happen in that magnitude. And that is groundbreaking. This drilling is in the Guinness Book of Records because we could find out more about the rest of the Pacific Ring of Fire. And this changes the risk assessment completely. Thanks for watching. If you want to support the channel, links are in the description. Become a member, click the join button for behind the scene videos about my private life. Thanks to everyone who's buying me coffee, supers, and supporting the channels. And now, check this out.